Welcome to this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for your support, the love you've given us as an organization to continue to do the work that we're doing by expounding on voices of the common person, as well as those that are leaders of organizations, uh, such as a leader, a CEO, a president. Uh, this episode is going to be partly on what you can read in my mental health autobiography, The House of You Prescription for Living. And it really revolves around uh, growing up, reaching that kind of pre-college phase, and just as an individual, as a male, uh, working out, you know, being ripped, having big muscles, was something that was very, very important to me. So I was, taking all kinds of different supplements to help boost the workouts that I was undertaking. The main goal was to uh, work out and get the biggest muscles possible, to be straight up about it. And part of that was I wanted to feel a sense of meaning myself, and I wanted others to look at me and say, wow, that's uh, an individual that works out and uh, values his health from the outside, what we could see and what I could feel. And so again, that was taking supplements, working out, taking more supplements, protein shakes. Really never dabbled into the steroids or anything like that, but was looking for supplements that would help achieve as close to that as possible. So the Vitamin Shop, GNC, became my friends. I was constantly on the lookout for the new improved, the most cutting edge supplement that could help get me those larger muscles. Uh, Again, that was for my own self-esteem, and that was for what I felt like having other people who I didn't know be like, wow, that must be somebody important. They're working out. They have all these muscles. Uh, I don't know. It's laughable now as I'm talking through this with you all. But that was where I was at for a few years. Uh, with that uh, came the you know the time of picking kind of your or my social circles, or what I was going to do on weekends and time away from if we're talking about college, so time away from classes. If we're talking about post college, time away from work and time away from the gym. And in college, and I would say even pre college, in my high school years really set things in motion from what I was thinking that was going to be important to me, and that was clubbing. Going to the club, listening to music, dancing, uh, hanging out with people that I thought were friends, meeting new people, all that. And so that was where I spent a lot of time on Friday, Saturday nights, over holidays. There just so happened to be a when I was that age, kind of like the teen club. And the funny part to me, it was called the grind. So it was kind of self-explanatory. And so the few people that I felt were friends, that's kind of what we would do. We would plan our time away from, we're talking, late high school years, junior, senior year. We were literally scheming and planning, going to the club on the weekends. And so what came with that was, well, I don't want to be sober when I go to the club. I have to not be sober, whatever that is. And it fluctuated. There were times where we weren't 21, so we couldn't legally purchase alcohol. So there were times when one way or another we were able to consume alcohol, and then go. In this particular club, we would be stand in line for maybe up to like a half hour, because there was only a certain amount of people who could be in the club at one time. So once 2 people came out, 2 people could go in. And so during that time, we were still consuming alcohol in line, and it was just kind of what we did. And then there were on other occasions where you've heard me talk about cold and cough pills, over-the-counter pills that we'll get into a little bit, but we would start to experiment with the cold and cough pills, because those would make us feel high in a sense, and we didn't have to kind of find an intermediary to help us out. We could go to the pharmacy and purchase those ourselves. As long as you're 18, we could do that. So there were times that we did that. There were, again, the other times where we would, throughout the week, we would find alcohol and we would consume near the club, the grind, and then in line, and a couple times we probably snuck some in plastic bottles and that. So that was what my life really revolved around at that time. And that was because I kind of fallen out sport wise. You've heard me talk and at lengths about being an athlete and baseball being kind of my favorite sport, and then how things really just didn't work out. Had shoulder surgery, and from then on, I just was never the same. Throwing the ball, I was dropping fly balls in the outfield, just things that like weren't. I wasn't trying to do that. Those things were just happening, and so that really put me down like this darkish path to where where the beginning of this show that I'm talking about. So we turned to a group of friends. So I wasn't with the cool kids. I didn't have the cool friends. I didn't get invited to the cool parties with the doctors and the attorneys and these mansions and pool parties and all these things that we look at the Kardashians and other influencers and people and go like, oh yeah, that's that's living the life there, and so that I wasn't. So I, one reason or another, whether consciously, subconsciously, I think it was a little bit of both. Consciously, I wanted to fit in, and subconsciously, my mind was thinking of, all right, how can I do that? And who can I fit in with? Or who wants me to fit in with them or be close to fitting in with them? And those are all things, right? Growing up, going through hormone changes, just growing up, going through puberty, and those things happen, to a large extent, at least a little extent with everybody. For me, I kind of took it a little bit too far because we talk about the cold and cough pills that I was experimenting with the same kind of peer group outside of high school, and that was the group that I was with when I took 32 of these cold and cough pills. I ended up in hospital for a few days, had my stomach pumped. There were terms like, if you went to Brompton Hospital, he might not have made it. We're being said, by doctors and nurses. And so we would think that would be kind of that flashpoint where I'd say, okay, Justin, hold up. We need to just take a step back. And from the over-the-counter pill standpoint, pretty much did. And part of that was because I was advancing in years, age-wise, getting closer and closer to age 21. And the closer I got, put me in contact with more people that were 21. So finding and getting alcohol wasn't as difficult, if that makes any sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that's the best way I can think about it. And so as I'm approaching 21, going through relationship, but was still going to the clubs, by school, where I was at college, and then kind of my hometown. There's a club that's open until I think 2 or 3 or maybe sometimes even 4 in the morning, and put myself in a lot of dangerous situations behind the wheel, just call it that. And one time I got pulled over, got a DUI. That's just kind of the way it was. So that was 20 years ago or so that happened. Obviously now as we know, I don't drink, and has something to do with that drinking and driving part, but the other is kind of the mental health and uh, finding finding I guess what I'm feeling that I want to do in life, that why I'm here on earth still. uh, so as college goes on, uh, the partying, for the most part, was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every week. Every week I was at school. That's what it was. After I say freshman year, kind of going into my sophomore year, I started to get, academic wise, I started to get a little bit wiser, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be in school forever, and I wasn't going to have a family that was going to support me for forever, which I shouldn't have. If I was going to spend all my time out partying and missing class and having to repeat class after class after class. There was one class, one of my economics classes, that I had to retake because I think I got a D or D minus in it. And so that was kind of a wake-up call of, all right, I need to figure this out. And so I started to go through that process, and that process was, I'm going to continue to go out, I'm going to continue going clubbing, but I was going to limit it as much as possible to the weekends. So I would, from say Sunday afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and into Thursday, and many Thursdays I didn't go out. But during those times, it was go to class, work on projects, meet with groups, and go that route. And my grades, notwithstanding, they continued to rise, and so I kind of found my valley, and then I started to rise once I started to get serious about finding what worked for me. And how this all is going to intertwine into the following episode is one of the individuals that I met was a exercise science major and former military, and so we thank all our troops, past, present, veterans, on earth and heaven. And he's mentioning, let's say, like a concoction of flaxseed oil, of sea salt mixed with a little bit of water, and by doing that and eating a lot of salmon and a couple other things, eating things that weren't in cans, that if I went to the bar, went to the club, drank a lot of alcohol, a lot of shots, that as long as I did kind of this regimen of mixing a little sea salt with water and all the flaxseed oil, that I'll be able to hang on to my sanity, hang on to being able to focus in class and do what needed to be done there, while still being able to go out and do, the clubbing things. And being, you only live once, that mindset happening in the early 2000s for me, where that got started. So why do I bring up flaxseed oil and sea salt and that? It's because that was the first time anything other than regular food got introduced to my, I'll call it, diet, where breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then I was incorporating this regimen into my schedule. So I was open to it. I was open to trying it. Felt like it was working. Things were working. My grades were improving. I tended to feel sharper. Yeah, whether that was the case or not, that was what I felt and was feeling. And so my grades were improving. I was still going out, and so I was able to kind of live I'll say, like, the best of both lives, in a way, where I could go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but then still be able to, come Sunday afternoon and, kind of flip that switch and say, okay, let's get focused on the school and on the academics. And so that carried me through, the rest of my years in college. I say, eating wise, I mean, I was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Eating fish, salmon at least once, maybe twice a week. A lot of chicken. Cereal with, even though I was taking flaxseed oil, I was also, some of these exotic cereals have different grains, different seeds, and so the flaxseed was one of those that was in one of the cereals that I was eating, and so I felt like, right, if you take double, it's gonna work double. That's not the case, but that was where my head was at. I again was performing well. There was even one experience that I would have thought never would have happened for me as a student. If I rewind the clock into high school, I was taking a summer class, and we were having an exam that was coming up. And so summer classes were known for being easier because the instructor doesn't want to stay the whole time. They want to go out golfing or go to the pool or just not be in class, the 4 hours or so that we're usually in class for once or twice a week class. And this was at the time where I was really peaking. I was doing very well. I was locked in academically. And this exam was coming up. And so I studied and came into class the day of the exam. And again, I was peaking. I was doing very well. I was answering a lot of questions when other students may not have thought of the answer to a particular question. The instructor would go to me. Again, years before, I would have thought that would never occur. It'd be the opposite way. They would go from Justin to somebody else, not from somebody else to Justin, to kind of get things rolling. So come into class, and a student raised their hand and said, "Hey, can we have an oral exam?" Meaning that the instructor would go through the exam, but instead of each individual student having a copy of the exam and going through it themselves, that the instructor would, let's say there's 10 questions, it's like 10 essay or 10 multiple choice. Doesn't really matter what kind of questions they were. Let's just say there's 10 questions. Well, and say there's 10 students, because the summer classes, some are bigger, some are smaller. So we're just calling it 10 for our sake. 10 questions, 10 students, and I'm one of the 10. And so instructor reads question 1. If it's multiple choice, here are the choices. And then the instructor picks a student to answer the question. And if that student got it right, you get everybody in the room gets all the points for number 1. If this student that was picked got it wrong, you got all the points wrong, got all the points taken away for question 1. And here I am, I'm peaking, I'm doing very well. I'm like, I actually studied. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to get a low score because somebody didn't study and they think that I'm going to pick up the slack for them. And so it's kind of that competitiveness in the sports. It was now, since I wasn't playing the sports, I was using it academically. And I said, no way, I'm not doing it. I said, I'll go in the other room, give me my own exam, and we'll do that. So I told the instructor that's what I wanted to do. He said, okay, is everybody close your eyes, put your head down, and asked, would you like to take an oral exam? Raise your hand. And then, would you want to take an individual exam? Raise your hand. And still to this day, it really blows my mind. So I'm talking about this here. I was the only person, so he gave me an exam. I went to the room next door that was open. And I was the only one. And then a minute or two went by, and another student, and another student, and another student. And pretty soon there was, I think, 6. Instructor came over and said, okay, everybody, we're going to come in. We're going to have an individual exam. So to me, this concoction, the flaxseed oil, the sea salt and water, the concoction that I was taking, I was eating, like I said, the 3 meals. I wouldn't say I was eating 3 full meals. I was eating part of a meal. Like I would eat chicken tenders. I would have a pizza, or I would have salmon, but it wouldn't mean I would have, the other complementing parts of a meal. So again, introduced flaxseed oil, sea salt, kind of in my mind, and in my mind saying, okay, I'm open to this type of open-mindedness when it comes to supplements and vitamins. And so that takes us to our next episode, where vitamins, supplements were in many ways overtaking, they were starting to overtake food, and some of the issues that was coming up in my life, where I was heading back down into that valley and then into the hospital. So we'll see you on the next episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you so much for your support. Please be a voice for you or somebody in need.